real competitor that people have is do nothing. AI is leaving behind. It's like trail of wreckage. And you have a better chance of getting into Harvard than you do an accelerator these days. But the faster you go, the more you need to pause. Nobody's looked at it from a holistic perspective.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakout CEO podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Holman, and I am really excited to bring you, what would we call it? A multifaceted, maybe a multi-layered expert here, Gregory Shepard. Greg, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, really glad to have you. So I am going to admit right now I'm at a bit of a loss because you've done so many different things from the different companies you've started and, you know, grown and everything to the startup science entire ecosystem that you've built out. So I'm gonna leave this up to you. What is the theme that you would say ties your career and your work together across everything you've done?
That's an interesting way of asking that. Okay. So, you know, I started building companies when I was 18. Mm-hmm. So I've built and sold 12. I've invested in 9, sold 4 so far.
You're not very active, are you? You're just dabbling.
I wrote 3 books. Let's see. I've co-founded the Fulbright Entrepreneurship Initiative. And I was named by MSN top 10 visionary in innovation and entrepreneurship just about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. And then I'm speaking at the United Nations on innovation and entrepreneurship in September. I think that what ties everything together is 2 of the companies I sold to eBay, and I was the chief strategy for eBay Enterprise Marketing Solutions. Mm-hmm. I left after 3 years and I went into politics, which was a terrible, terrible, terrible decision. But I was trying to move money down to startups, right? So okay. I went to them, they said no. And then I did a 5-year research project on startup success and failure, which is a lot of the content from the books came from that. Went back to them, they said no again. So then I started Startup Science and wrote the books to try to help. I think what sort of braids everything together is my desire to help entrepreneurs. I think that entrepreneurs change the future. They, you know, help us evolve. It's a good way for equality and equity amongst people. And, you know, me, myself, coming from a poor family, you know, I mean, we lived in tents, you know, for like 2.5 years. And
actual tents. What?
Yeah. Yep.
Where was this? Where were you? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I lived in Oakland, but I kept getting beat up in Oakland. So my parents moved us to the mountains, and we homesteaded on property for 5 years. So I mean, this is showering from a bag hanging from a tree, going to the bathroom in a bucket. Campfires to cook. You know, it was you know, no water, outside, no electricity.
This is, I mean, when you say move to the mountains, is it like this is just the hills outside of? You know the city or?
No, this is way up. This is near Tahoe.
Okay.
Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
So this is like between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. It's like in the mountains. Like there was nobody around for, I mean, you have to drive for 50
You're up at 8,000 feet or something.
Up yeah. It was like, it was high elevation. It was, you know, but I mean, I fought my way through and did everything that I just named. Right. So I was like, well, other people should be able to do it too. What's stopping them? And that's what got me into this whole idea of like, how can I help? How can I give back and how can I help? So that's sort of like the thing that braids everything together.
So okay. So innovation and entrepreneurship and Fulbright entrepreneurship, something or other, and United Nations, small names like that. And so you've done, like I said, I wasn't sure how to do this introduction without your help here. As you think about your career, and you think, you know, there's 1 or 2 moments, maybe there's more, you've done so many things, but 1 or 2 moments where you say, these were the defining moments as I was going along, like a business that was going to go under and then you reinvented it, or maybe a personal moment where you said, I just can't do this anymore. Like I love entrepreneurship, but maybe it's not for me. Until you try to walk away and it's like, wait a second, where would I go? Like, are there some moments like that resonate with you from
Yeah, I
your
mean,
past?
I can tell you a couple of them. Before affiliate marketing became like a big thing, where you have like all these affiliate networks, there used to be directories, affiliate program directories. And what you would do is you would go sign up, somebody would get a contact form, and then they would put together tracking for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go to directories, these little directories that listed all the programs you could sign up for and market products and services. I bought all the directories and then created software that automatically submitted to them. And then I sold that because affiliate networks were coming and I knew it. So then I built the first affiliate marketing agency, the first one to go global and the first one to be acquired. And that was a game changer, right? That was like a moment where I was like, I started to understand that the way disruption works is that there's like a still pond and it's like stagnant and still. We've seen these ponds,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody throws a rock and it brings up all the sediment and everything. And then there's rings that start to form, and those first rings are bigger. There's not very many opportunities in them because the ring is small, but the rings are big, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
as it starts to spread out, there's more and more opportunities, but that also creates fragmentation. And the fragmentation creates almost like a breathing of an ecosystem where it expands and then it contracts. And once I started to understand this, it was a turning point because I was like, wow, all these ecosystems go through this expansion, which creates fragmentation. Then when they contract, there's consolidation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you time it out right, you can actually hit it at the right time. And then you can exit a company pretty quickly because you come in during the expansion phase. When it starts to contract, people start to go out of business. This is where the big ones, you buy them or merge them or do something with them. And then slowly you start to become the consolidator, right? And that changes everything. That's what happened with affiliate marketing and shopping carts and CRMs. And I mean, you could go around the horn, and pretty much anything in marketing, was a consolidation. Like HubSpot, as an example, is a revenue CRM. They have sales, service, and marketing, right?
Yeah.
So it's a revenue CRM. Well, those used to be separate components, but they consolidated them, right? And Salesforce consolidated them, and everybody else did too. So that's what I mean by that. So that was a fundamental change.
Well, so yeah, I know a lot of people talk about, these, I love the water analogies. People talk about catching the waves and all that stuff, but you're presenting it in a different way where it's not just a wave, like it's the expansion, contraction, innovation cycles that happen. I feel like Clayton Christensen talks about some of those expansion, contraction, or I don't, maybe it wasn't him, but those are kind of the quintessential motions of innovation and development of new technologies, right? I hadn't thought of it though in a way that, well, it takes me back to when I was in college. I worked for this guy, and he talked about how his father grew the business that eventually became his business by buying all of the what was it? I think it was electrical wiring supplies in the business during a huge downturn in the market because they became available. Sort of a contraction consolidation cycle, on a small scale.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're describing is really, I don't know if does it align with like second mover advantage? Because first mover advantage, you're at risk of all of the expansion cracks that are forming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a second mover advantage in a better position, or where does this contraction consolidation cycle hit, and how do you identify it in a market?
Just a quick note about our guests. I host the Breakout CEO podcast to share behind the scenes insights from scaling businesses. As an attorney, I see the real challenges leaders face long before success becomes public. But client stories have to stay confidential. So we invite guest CEOs to share their own moments of struggle and success. I'm so grateful to our guests and my team at Intellectual Strategies for making this show possible. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I call it the second mover look back and the first mover disadvantage.
Okay.
Because if you're walking through a jungle and you have a machete and you're cutting the trail,
Yeah.
but somebody's right behind you, walking right up behind you, who's got the advantage?
That's the second person for sure. If you're talking energy expenditure and yeah.
They just run up behind you and say, keep going. I'm right here, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that the first mover has a timing advantage, but in this day and age with AI and all how fast tech is moving, is it really an advantage or is it a disadvantage? You know,
Yeah.
like let them build the wheel and then come up behind them and use the wheel.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's how I think about that, right? Is this idea. I think that the difference though is when I was referencing the pond, it's a stagnant pond, meaning an industry that's stagnant and ripe for innovation.
Okay.
Like, and they go through rotations. Every time there's an expansion and contraction, there's room for more people to step in and change things, right? Like you see these roll-ups happen all the time with the big companies. They'll go out, somebody will roll up a bunch of stuff, do a SPAC or whatever, and then some big will come in and buy them and roll them into their suite of things. And then this repeats over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's like a heartbeat, right? It's sort of like, you know, beats and it brings life to a situation, sucks everything back in, brings life to a situation. But I think that the thing that changes whether the opportunity is a big opportunity or just an opportunity to solve a problem is how stagnant the pond is that you're disrupting.
So it's not just your timing or placement relative to the movement. It's what's where are you? What pond are you in? Where the movement's happening?
Right. Like look at the startup ecosystem.
Uh-huh.
So the startup ecosystem for the last 35 years has had a 90% failure rate for entrepreneurs. Like that's your first indicator.
Right.
Something's wrong. Right. Like how could that, like what industry is going to sit there and go, oh yeah, that's fine. Just so then you have all these people starting to create all these point solutions to solve all the little problems that they see from their lens.
Right.
But somebody else comes in and looks at the entirety of the ecosystem and takes all these fragmented pieces, looks at the whole thing and says, oh, this really should be one platform because they're all interconnected. That pond is really stagnant because it's been like that for 35 years and nobody's disrupting it because nobody's looked at it from a holistic perspective and everybody's focused on their own startup, you know, versus the ecosystem at large.
Well, and so in this day and age, it would seem like maybe there's the gut reaction to that is, well, isn't AI making it so there's not a stagnant pond anymore? Are all the ponds becoming less stagnant, or is that a different thing than the stagnant pond theory that we're talking about?
No, it's true. It is helping out with all these little areas, all these little stagnant ponds, but it's also creating fragmentation at a scale we've never seen before, which means that in the next 5 years, you'll see like a lot of roll-ups. You see a lot of people buying things that people have built and managed to get off the ground, and AI threatening to take them down because somebody can vibe code something that took somebody 5 years with an engineering team. They can do it now in, you know, a month or two by themselves, vibe coding. So those companies they're creating fragmentation by creating competition, and that fragmentation is bound to be consolidated, right? There's leftovers, you know, there's constant leftovers everywhere. You can see this like trail of wreckage that AI is leaving behind, and one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yes. You know? Well, so I had a call with a potential client today. They said, "Hey, we're building this, you know, new technology. It's software related, and you know, we're going to go out. We're going to raise $8 to $10 million, and our timeline to build this is, you know, 11 months, 12 months, something like that." And I just thought to myself, "Wait a second, are people doing that still? Like, is that still an option to do that, or is the whole concept of vibe coding?" Fast validation, like scaling, you know, efficiently, like what is your gut reaction to somebody, whether they're running their own business or trying to start a business, who says, "Hey, yeah, I'm, you know, $8 to $10 million and I can get this thing off the ground." Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that through the same lens today that you saw it, 10 years ago?
No, definitely not the same. But there's a difference. The way I see it is like, if you're using one of the AI Claude code or whatever it is that you're using to write code,
yeah,
you're going to be writing code, maybe 20 times faster, maybe 30 times faster than you did before. But it writes code in pieces. It doesn't write platforms. So if you have a multi-tenant platform, that's a moat. And if you're building something that's a real platform, Claude is not. Claude and ChatGPT and all the rest of them, Perplexity, et cetera, they're not interested in solving. They're not building platforms, and they're not interested in solving small problems, right? They're going after the bigs. They're going after big market share, because they have to come up against this $1 trillion, IPO that they're trying to get done, right?
Right.
So,
that's why they're tackling the legal market, right? Like legal is maybe one of the most stagnant ponds still out there to be disrupted, and it's a huge potential market where the AI tools can be deployed in a way that could make very meaningful strides forward for people who traditionally have not been making a lot of strides forward with technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to force the legal industry to step into the game, just like it's forcing the financial industry to step into the game with their CFO tool. But I think that, there's one thing that won't go away, and that is that people want to talk to somebody. Like, you work on an acquisition in AI all you want, but you still feel like I need to talk to somebody and walk through this and see what AI is missing. Because the way that AI works is it only answers the question that you ask. And it doesn't usually probe past that very far unless you ask. So it uses data. I always think of this stack. There's data, which is unstructured information. Then there's information, which is structured information. Then there's wisdom, which is people that have activated the information that came from the data. The wisdom the AI can't do, but it can take unstructured data and create information. So, they're like these things in a lot of ways are as good as the driver, so what's going to happen, I think, is you're going to have more and more CFOs and attorneys using the systems because they understand what to say and how to talk to the system. I think that in addition to that there's going to be the competition is going to be fierce. The prices are going to go down, things like that. People will be using things like Caseway.ai to do contracts, but they're still going to want to talk to somebody. So you'll have like your attorney with the structure that attorneys usually have with paralegals, except for it's going to be AI instead of paralegals.
Right.
Just like what happened with coding, right? Like with coding, you have a seasoned engineer on top of the stack, and they have like 10 junior coders that are agents, AI agents that they're using. I think attorneys are going to go the same direction, and accountants and so on and so forth.
Do you think this will increase, and we don't need to dwell on this too long, but I'm curious to round this out. Do you think this will increase the value of the good, we'll just call them the good general counsel or the good CFOs, the people who have that judgment and wisdom, that system level thinking and can step in? Because I wonder if this actually returns us in a way to what a general counsel role in the legal field used to be, which is
That's
really
what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have like a fractional general counsel, like your own fractional in-house general counsel that utilizes AI on your behalf.
Yeah.
Right. Because now it's less expensive and it's more affordable. So you're going to do more with your lawyer because it's more affordable to work with the lawyer instead of, and this is a transition. Like right now, people are trying to skate around the attorney because they're like, oh, I can just go to, ChatGPT or whatever and draft a purchase agreement or something. Right. But I think that's going to change because I think people are going to make some serious mistakes and they're going to learn from those mistakes and go, I need to like talk to a human being, even if that human being is using AI.
Yeah.
Because they know how to talk to the AI. Like if you think about a coder, coders, the real coders, real engineers, they know how to talk to Claude code in a way that it writes the code they want. It's not sloppy code.
Right.
But that takes the experience of that engineer to do that, just like it would an attorney or an accountant or pretty much anybody else that they're going at underneath the big umbrella of management consulting, or services.
Yeah. It's an interesting world, and I'll bet this is playing out in a fascinating way within your own startup ecosystem that you're building, right? I mean, tell us a little bit about that, because I want to make sure everyone has kind of the context for what that is.
Sure. So what I did is I saw that fragmentation that I was talking about in 2016, and I started the 5-year research project on startup success and failure back then. About 5 years later, I saw in that process that the reason why this failure was happening is because of the fragmentation. And these founders are getting sent in 100 different directions. The accelerators and incubators, the whole system is, these accelerators and incubators are trying to duct tape together, forms and CRMs and things like Notion and project management solutions and all this kind of stuff to try to create something.
You're talking about the groups that, like, real incubators where you go in and a startup gets maybe access to some money, but they get access to the experienced team members that will bring, the data, information, and wisdom from, legal, financial, go-to-market, sales people. This is what you're talking about. But instead of being coordinated, it's a fragmented, kind of mashed together thing, not a really coordinated effort.
If you go into an accelerator, well, let me back up to go forward. If you look at the startup space, what you have is the entrepreneur support organizations like accelerators, incubators, chambers of commerce, hackathons, maker labs, startup studios, all those guys. Then you have the founder, of course, and then you have the advisors, mentors, fractional workers, all the different forms of advisors. And then you have the investors, the people that are investing directly into it. And then you have the providers, and the providers are folks like attorneys and accountants and, those folks. So you have there's 5 players in the ecosystem.
Okay.
Right now, if you're an entrepreneur support organization, or we call them ESOs, if you're an ESO and you're out there working, you have to try to keep track of all this stuff that's going on among hundreds of founders through 5 to 10 different systems.
Yeah.
Like it's a disaster, right? It's no wonder that founders are falling by the wayside, right? Because it's impossible for them. The other thing is that they only accept about 2%. You have a better chance of getting into Harvard than you do an accelerator these days, because they're limited in what they can actually do, because their systems are limiting their ability to scale. The same problem they always talk about with the startups themselves. They can't scale. If you look at these accelerators and incubators and stuff, they've been stuck at 25. The big ones do 50, but typically about 25 entrepreneurs per cohort, because they can't do anymore, because they don't have the infrastructure around them to scale to it.
Yeah.
So that's holding back more founders from getting out into the world, right? So you either have 2 solutions, either more accelerators, incubators, et cetera, or the ones that are there scale.
Okay.
So I've chosen to scale help the ones that are helping entrepreneurs scale, and then make it easier for new ones to launch. And that's what startup science is.
So does that make you an entrepreneur support organization?
Yes. Yeah, that is exactly right. Yeah. I say that we're the infrastructure for the startup economy.
Okay. And so what is it you provide? How do you come in and provide that support to them?
So, when I wrote the startup lifecycle, I did like 4,800 interviews with ESOs. I did interviews with founders. I did interviews with mentors, service providers, all 5 of the ecosystem for years.
I have to interject. Were you doing a PhD or something? Like, this is intense research.
Yeah, I got an honorary PhD for doing it. Yeah. And I was doing my Fulbright Scholar. I'm a Fulbright Scholar also. So
I see.
I was putting that together. And so when I finished this whole thing, I was like, looking at the entrepreneur support organizations, they have to build a program based off of a grant, based off sponsors and other fees that they make from investors, et cetera.
Mhm.
That's where their money comes from. And then they have to build a whole curriculum, and then they have to get mentors to help out, and then they have to get sponsors. I mean, the amount of work that an accelerator has to do to put on a cohort is immense, and they typically have like 3 to 5 people trying to do all of this.
Yeah.
With typically 12 different pieces of software. I mean, it's crazy. It's amazing that they even are successful in the first place, and so this is where I learned everything. And I was like looking at this, and I would break it down into details, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, how does the startup ecosystem not have something for the startup ecosystem?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Right. I was like, and so I kept looking for it. Right. I kept looking and trying to find, like, how come nobody has done this? It just blew my mind, and nobody did. Nobody's done it. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be the disruptor, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing now for almost 6 years.
And so you've been building this out, and if I were an ESO, and I were helping, my 25 companies in a cohort, what would I turn to you for? How would that, what does that augment with what I'm able to provide to the
Sure.
entrepreneurs in my group?
So it depends on who you are, right? So it's like 5 platforms in one. So if you log in as a provider, you're going to get a platform for you. If you're logged in as a mentor or an advisor, you're going to get a platform for you, et cetera, right? So the platform changes depending on who's logging in to suit that person's needs.
Okay.
The founder has a collection of everything, and the ESO has a collection of everything. So the founder now has their own side of the system that has investors. It has a marketplace for discounts on software and services, non-dilutive capital. There's dilutive capital, non-dilutive capital. There's tools that allow you to do cap table simulations and things like that. It's a full suite: projections, data room analysis tools. Like, it's a whole, collection of different tools you can use. There's an LMS in it with courses that you can take. So you can take courses on anything you want. So it's like a turnkey accelerator. And the accelerators will go in and they'll put in their own courses, and they'll put in their own investors and their own deals that they have for the marketplace, which is like perks and incentives and stuff from service and software providers for entrepreneurs. So that's basically the concept, is that it's like an independent platform for each player that collects everything in front of the founder, so that the founder has one place to go for everything instead of fragmentation. And that's the same way for everybody, right? Like, I'll give you an example. Advisors, if you look at the knowledge worker environment, there's been all these layoffs and all these knowledge workers, and they're all becoming fractionals.
Right.
And the fractionals have started to come together and create agencies, sort of like you would see a law firm or
I've
an
seen
accounting firm.
Some calling themselves co-ops too.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we did is build a platform for them, because it doesn't exist, and allow them to run their own business on our platform. But that also makes it so they're available for the founders, right? So we're helping the founders and we're helping the ecosystem. And that's sort of the way the platform works in all 5 of these different profiles.
That's very interesting. And the focus here, from what I understand, is really getting the right information to the founders at the right time so they can build their business. Well, do you have stories of, and I know that, this kind of I don't want to call it indirect, but it's a 2-step process. You're providing the software for the groups that then support the entrepreneurs or the founders. But have you seen from the ESOs that you work with, or maybe even some founders directly, some of the successes that come from utilizing the ecosystem you built?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've seen the numbers of founders that our clients are using our software have gone up. So typically way up, like sometimes 10 more founders. If they're typically doing 25, they're doing 35 now, because they can handle more.
It's a 40% expansion.
Yeah, it's substantial, right?
Yeah.
And so think about that. across a $9 trillion industry.
Hmm.
And then you look at it from the perspective of the founders, and you see that the founders are actually more successful. They're spending more time on the things they need to spend time on. They're getting all of the little fragmented education pieces that they missed the first time. They're able to save all their information in one place. It's just more organized for them. And that adds value. So you start to see more of the holistic ecosystem starting to be more successful.
Yeah.
That is my objective, right? It's to really, I want to increase the success rate by 10%. And I want to make the entire ecosystem more collaborative, more connected instead of so disconnected.
Well, and so you've been through a dozen of your own businesses with some exits, and you've acquired other businesses. This is in a form, with a focus on impact. This is, maybe call it business number 13, right?
Yeah, this is number 13. Yeah. And you know what? I didn't even tell you. I've won 4 private equity awards for transactions between 250 million and $1 billion too. I forgot about that.
What do you mean you've won transaction? Sorry.
So the private equity awards for companies that I sold or built and sold or whatever, they issue awards they have an award ceremony every year. And so I've gotten a bunch of awards. That's what's behind me here. You can see them actually right there.
And they're like, and the winner is, again, it's Greg.
Yeah.
Well, but so what are you seeing as you're building and scaling this ecosystem, this business? What are you able to draw on from your past, and what are the new things that you're running into trying to, get this out there to the founders who need it most?
I think, and I tell founders this, the biggest competitor that people have, everybody does so much competitive research, right? But the real competitor that people have is do nothing.
Right.
And so that's the biggest challenge I have is that, an accelerator will sit there and go, well, my data is over here in Notion and it's in this CRM and I have this Google form I use for my intake and I've got these spreadsheets and it's all over the place and they want to solve the problem, but they're busy. So they choose to do nothing and just take the problem. And eventually they have to do something.
Yeah.
It just becomes unscalable. But that's the biggest challenge I have is that they're like, well, how do I move all my data from here to there? That's a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, you only have to do it once. And then it's saving you $3,500 a month typically, because we typically save the average ESO $3,500 a month, and all their data is in one place. So now they can do their reports for grants and stuff a lot easier too.
I guess it's not surprising that type of problem is exactly what a lot of, new founders run into as they're building their own business, right? They're, somebody,
totally.
They're like, hey, I got this awesome thing. It might be me. And I might say, well, I've got this fractional legal team. Nobody else is really doing it. It's the right way to serve clients, get the right attorneys in front of the right people, solving the right problems at the right time without having to go out and hire, a dozen different attorneys along the way. And while I might think it's, the best thing in the world from a legal perspective, getting it out there and talking to people who say it's, this is, I've got my guys already. Like they might be spread out, but I'm using them. And this is, I just don't want to change. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. Or, that same thing applies to software or any other business, right?
Yeah, but there's some cachet that comes with, I have my own in-house attorney, even though it's fractional, right? Like people say, here's my CTO, here's my CFO, whatever. And they're fractionals. But there's some cachet that comes with that. Like, oh man, this guy's got his own attorney. And there's some fear on the other side because they don't know that you're paying the same, right? They think this dude's on salary. Man, this guy can do this forever. Right.
I'm going to clip that and turn that into an ad. Okay. No, but I know what you're saying. There's always that. I guess what you're kind of highlighting in my example situation is that while there is this, no action competitive position, you have to find what's the twist, right? What is the twist where people say, yeah, I could take no action, and that's really easy for 90% of the time, but there's still 10% advantage.
Mhm.
Like there's still something that triggers a reason to take that action. And
Yeah.
what is that for you in your business when you go to these ESOs and they're like, well, we would, like, this is awesome. We should. How do you get them to say, okay, let's do it?
We put together a free migration product. So we're like, if you switch over to us, we'll do all the work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So just give us access to everything. We'll put it all into the platform for you. We'll give you an orientation so you know how to use the platform. And there you go.
Okay.
So it's saving them the migration, right? Saving them the hassle of, it reminds me, when you're using AI, you have to sit, if you're working on a project, you have to sit there with the AI and you have to train it every single time, right? You sit down and you have to type in what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it and what outcome you want and blah, 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 blah. And then you do this for 30 minutes and then you can finally get the work done. It's really fast after that, but it takes you 30, maybe even an hour to get it, ramped up. Mm-hmm. And then you can produce things in seconds that would take you, hours or days, but you still have to invest that initial amount of time. That, I think, is change management for people. So the migration that we do is more of a change management process. Like, hey, don't stress out. It's going to be fine. You'll get the benefits of this without the withdrawals that you're having right now from having to pull out all the data that you've organized all over the place, right? Yeah. And I think it's the same for you, right? If you're like, hey, listen, you've got 5 attorneys. Yeah, you don't want to change anything because they know everything that's going on. We have a migration plan that includes moving what these people know over to us. So now we are the source of truth, Yeah.
It's minimizing that transaction cost. With
switching costs. Yeah.
Yep. That's involved with change management. I love those topics, but there's probably another layer to dig into there at some point, but I want to save some time because I know we've got a hard stop here, but where do you see this going? Like if you're able to lock in with the people who are trying to create the impact for the founders that they say they're trying to create, where do you see this going? And what role do you see playing in that in the long term?
I think what's inevitable in the long term, and I think anybody that really is honest about this is that we are going to end up working less and getting more done. That there's just if everybody needs a job, but you only have jobs for half the people, then people work half the time and everybody's employed. Okay. Right. So like that's where I think it's going, is that people will just work less and get more done and everybody will have a job. And, that because what else is there? What's the other option? The government's not going to step in. You're going to have a huge unemployment problem. Somebody's going to have to do, like the market is going to have to do something.
That's really interesting because when I look at what people are doing, I see people working more, pushing more, trying to build more, do more faster, better. And that's going to be what you've just described might be the inevitable. It's going to be a drastic change though, from where it feels like momentum is headed right now.
I think they're parallel tracks though.
Are they? How so?
Because if you are powering through something, right, you're going to get to where that road starts to become thinner, quick, right? Quicker than it would take before. So inevitably, whatever it is that you're doing, you're using AI, you're going faster and faster and you're building more and you're doing more and you're going faster. Like that is not a sustainable structure, right? Eventually you will get to the end of the project and then it goes into maintenance mode, right? And when it goes into maintenance mode, it's going to take less time and then the person's going to work less, just like we already do. If you think about, people that are really productive, they'll be really productive and then they'll go on vacation because they can. Yeah. Because they've worked themselves up to the point that they can take time off. I think it's just how it's how we're built. People are going to work really hard and take time off, or work really hard for half the day and take time off. And, people are going to start doing other projects. It's so fascinating to me because the people that have been left behind traditionally, these are people, I call them hands workers,
Okay.
right? So the construction people and, people that are doing those sort of tasks, those people are going to be more important than they ever have,
Yes.
because AI can't do those things. Robotics to, build a house, that's a ways out.
Yeah, my son really likes welding. He's 16, and as a growing up at my age, I'm like, welding. I mean, it's great, but you might want to think about owning your own business or something, because just welding might not be the most financially rewarding. But I wonder if I'm off track. Looking ahead 15 years, welding might be a very profitable, in demand service, because it's what do you call it, hands business?
A hands business, yeah. You're using your hands, right? The welding as an example, if he works for a big shop, a robot could take that over. But if he's doing custom welding for people, like coming in, fixing this and that kind of stuff, he's going to be good. Because just like AI, they're not after the little details, they're after the big hits.
Right.
Robotics is going to be the same thing,
Well, that's an interesting point, because when you think about AI and reaching the end point faster and, taking time, like in the startup world, in the innovating ecosystem, you run into the forest a lot faster, and then you have to slow down because you don't know where to go from there. So the innovation slows you down in a sense. Even though you're innovating faster, you have to probably stop and look at the landscape a lot more frequently to know where to innovate now. But
the faster you go, the more you need to pause, because it's reckless if you don't.
Yeah.
Before it was like running through peanut butter to do a startup, right? Just incredibly painful. And now you have the wind at your back, right?
Yeah.
And you're hauling. But that also means that you could be passing up things.
Right.
And making mistakes fast and getting to the point that you've made irreversible mistakes, getting to the point where it's irreversible faster than before.
I love this conversation. There's so much more to it. I can see why you've won awards, why you're being invited to speak places like the UN, and why you're writing books. There's a lot here. Tell the audience before you head out, tell us about the book that you've written most recently and want to share with everyone.
The Startup Lifecycle. What I did is I realized that the people's understanding about startups, the first major reason why founders were failing is they didn't know where they were going or where they were, right? If you're going anywhere, that's what you need to know, where you are and where you're going, right? I mean, it's like common sense. They were all saying, oh, I'm at pre-seed, I'm at seed. These are things that happen during the life cycle of a startup. They aren't the stage that they're at. And that's evident in that people say, I'm at pre-seed or seed or series seed or whatever. I mean, they're all over the place, right? There is no standard. So what I wanted to do was build a life cycle standard and then apply things like technology readiness levels and investor readiness levels and, all of that sort of stuff to the life cycle and rounds of funding, et cetera. So you can say, I'm at the vision stage and I need to do all these things. And these are the things that I can expect to happen during that stage. That's what the life cycle was about. That's what I wrote it for, is to give some guidance, right? It's common sense. If you're going to go on a vacation, you know where you're going and where you're going to stay, and there's some idea of how much gas you're going to use, how much money you need, and food and stuff, right? I mean, you have some plan, right? You don't just like leave your house with no idea of where you're going. Just start driving, So that's what a lot of founders do. They're like, I have an idea, I'm going to leave home. And then they just start driving, and it's no wonder they fail, right? It's a disaster. So that's what the startup life cycle is about. It's really good context for what you can expect to have happen, what you need to do, why founders fail during the different phases of the life cycle. It's thorough. It took me 4 years to write it, after the 5 years of research.
Yeah.
Because of before AI, it was really hard to go through the data. It took years just to go through the data and pull out meaningful stuff, things where you're looking at that and you're like, this matters. Like, people need to know this.
That's sounds like a tenacious goal, and you're working on really big things. This is part of what you do. It's a pretty amazing, not to focus on the origin story of, saying that you grew up in the mountains and that, lived in a tent with your family for a while. And now you're out there, not just providing, but building ecosystems for an entire community of people in the startup world. There's something to be said there. And I'm not sure how to articulate it, but kudos to you for the work that you're doing.
That's so kind of you. I really appreciate it. That's so kind. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out, buy the book, hear some of your other thoughts?
So the book is The Startup Lifecycle. It's in Amazon. There's also an audiobook, and they have those summary books, and there's Kindle. I mean, they have it in every possible way you want to read it. And my website is gregoryshepard.com. So you can see where I'm speaking or whatever I'm doing. It's there, and all the companies I've built and all the investments I've made and everything I've done is in there because some people just don't believe it. So I put it in there to prove it. And then LinkedIn, obviously.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Greg. There's so much to be discussed and maybe pulled out of this. We might have to do another episode in the future.
That would be cool. And you're a cool cat. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And to those of you who listened today, thanks for joining us on the Breakout CEO podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoy the show, a rating or a review goes a long way. Our mission is to promote the stories of breakout CEOs in scaling SaaS, e-commerce, and tech companies to equip peer CEOs with valuable perspectives and confidence. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of The Breakout CEO. I'm Jeff Holman, and I'll see you next time.